Welcome to Oppsell, where top sales legends reveal the playbooks they hardly ever share. With your host, Wilson DK.
Sales solution experts. It's real talk, real strategies.
Starting now.
Welcome to today's episode of the Oppsell Podcast. Today, we are joined by Wole Odeleye, a seasoned transformational leader who's turned cloud strategy into double-digit revenue growth and modernized banking across Africa. With over 15 years in the trenches, even having an executive MBA in progress and a reputation of marrying data-driven insights with people-first leadership, Wole knows how to convert complex tech into measurable business wins. So let's get on with it. Hi, Wole. Nice to have you on here.
Hi, Wilson. Thanks for having me here again.
Yes, yeah, it's really good, and I hope the weather is beautiful where you are. I just hope so.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. So let's get on with it, right? And we're going to be looking at some topics, but partitioned or segmented in three subsets. We're going to look at strategy and leadership, and in there, a subset of that would be transitioning roles. I see that all through your career you have moved from one business to another, and also taking on big portfolios, taking on bigger roles. So I'd like to ask, how did you move, and how you moved between two big giants, between Oracle and Microsoft, and how did that influence your sales and business development approach?
Okay, thanks for that. So my sales business development didn't actually start with the giants, right? I spent the first 6 years of my career with smaller organizations, and that gave me the benefit to build technical depth. And this technical depth was going to be the pillar around which my career with the big guys, flourished. My sales career actually started with Sage UK. That was my first core sales role. Before then, I used to leave technology delivery roles for enterprise platforms on the Microsoft stacks and analytics stacks. But Sage was my first sales role, and it was a difficult journey for me, which I think is common for people who are transitioning from core technology roles to sales related roles. But that was where I started learning around lead management, opportunity management, stakeholder management, and started building the depth required to be a proper salesperson. I was poached from Sage by Oracle, and I was hired to join their business as the role was called a business solutions lead. But the career level was a principal solutions consultant with Oracle, which is what you would call a pre-sales role in the past. At the time, I was focused on driving the market growth and the adoption of the Oracle Cloud Application Suite. By then, they had just newly launched it into the market, as at the time, Oracle used to be predominantly an on-prem organization. They sell on-prem ERP systems and business systems, and they were trying to break into that cloud market, leveraging their new, which in my opinion was quite sophisticated at the time, their ERP supply chain, their enterprise performance management solution. So I built a strong balance of sales and pre-sales competencies there. And I would admit, Oracle really grilled me. And one thing Oracle does very well is to train you very well to be a strong salesperson. And one of the things that went very well for my career in Oracle was that I had the opportunity to now build what you call industry expertise, which is critical in our market when you are a salesperson or in any sales role. Because the understanding of industry context is what will now dilute into customer context. And that is what now determines whether or not you can actually position a specific solution or service within that customer space or that market space. So within Oracle, I built very strong competency in financial services. across banking, capital markets, and insurance at the time. I also did extensive work in the energy space, both upstream, midstream, downstream. There are areas I learned very, very well. I did a bit of work in manufacturing, but not too much. And I did very extensive work within the telecommunication space also. The really big telcos in Africa. I worked with them in their ERP systems design at the time. I think the final industry I also spent quite a lot of time was public sector, and I think it was also one of my favorites. I did a lot of work with the large government bodies and also some World Bank projects also. And so a lot of the what you would call the sales-based, process-based thinking was what I built in Oracle. The discipline in these areas, I built it in that industry. And from there, that was when I then moved into Microsoft. That now built a lot of sales depth for me. By then, I'd already built a strong technical portfolio. But yeah, that was what my journey was so far.
Yeah, that's an impressive to know. I mean, you took us way back, when you started off from Sage and moved on to Oracle, and having all those the touch points in all the sectors, and getting in-depth knowledge, in-depth know-how in this touch points and these sectors, then moving on to Microsoft to expand. This is, how I put it, a trifecta, moving from Sage, moving down to a bigger giant Oracle, then moving into Microsoft and taking good roles, good positions, and of course expanding and growing businesses based off of what you've achieved in the past. So with all of this, you must have had the mindset and of course the vision of driving growth. So I'd like to ask if you can share a specific strategy you employed to achieve, huge revenues, double-digit revenues across West Africa during your tenure in Oracle, just to start with, before we look into Microsoft.
Okay, great one. So Oracle already has a very established reputation in the market in terms of business solutions. One of the things I did appreciate our organization for was the ability to verticalize their technology. And verticalization, for audiences who don't know that word, is having pre-built technologies that work within specific industries with very minimal configuration tailoring. You've really built it for an industry. Yeah. And Oracle has a very solid and strong vertical strategy, I must admit. Whether you're looking at it from core banking, digital banking, name it, they are quite extensive, right? The other part is that they give you the opportunity to truly be creative within industries. And why I'm saying this is, if the problem I've seen with many people who do sales, right, is that they are so hyper-focused in the outcome they're trying to achieve, which is a number. And even though I understand that, yes, that is the primary KPI around how they are managed, if you think about it philosophically, it's actually the wrong way of thinking. Because if you think about your customers from the point of view of value, the value-based thinking pulls the number. Let me give you an example. Let's assume tomorrow, and I'll use an industry that we find common in our African space, energy. We're a very large energy market.
Yes.
Let's say an energy company comes to you to say, we're thinking of getting a supply chain system or an ERP system. The traditional salesperson is already quickly thinking about, what components do I sell to these people that will give me the biggest return in revenue? As against asking themselves, what is the problem this customer is trying to solve? Is it customer, for example, trying to solve production accounting? Are they trying to solve for revenue assurance? Is there leakages? Is there personnel gaps? Is there insights they're trying to gain around their business capacity? What is the core problem they're trying to solve? And based on that problem, push it down to what is the solution approach we need to use to solve that problem, and then what are the specific technologies I can sell to them. Now, the beauty of a value-based thinking is that at the initial stage, it may seem like you are not making as much revenue you think you want to gain. But what you are actually doing is that you are building customer equity and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about our market is our market customers run on trust.
Right.
The moment they see that anytime they interact with you, they get value, it makes future sales processes easier. And it makes these organizations willing to bet their transformation on you, because they're not so much as buying the brand you represent. They are buying into you, the person telling the story of what that journey will look like, because you are bringing your own personal equity to the table. You are bringing your own personal thought leadership to the table. Now, over my career, over the last, and if I count the last 10 years now, if I count backwards, that has been my approach. And what that has done is that it has made me being able to close really, really large deals.
Yeah.
I'm able to close those large deals because in understanding and framing customer problem, I start to tackle rooms in the house. How does this problem apply to procurement? How does this apply to HR? How does it apply to finance? If I'm in energy, for example, how does it apply to the production department, the engineering department? You think about it that way, and you're thinking purely based on the problem you're solving for and the use cases you're trying to solve for.
Yeah.
By the time you solution for those problems, you have yourself a really large deal. Now, the customer may say, oh, I don't have the money for everything now. But what they'll be willing to do with you at that point is they'll be willing to roadmap that journey with you, meaning, let me start with this XYZ areas with you, knowing that year 2, year 3, I'm onboarding new capabilities, new technologies into it. And I think that's how people need to do it. It has worked for me. I find that also in the industry, people use relationships a lot to try and close big deals. I don't think it's a sustainable approach, because your personal net worth, your personal friendship can only take you so far.
Yeah.
If I'm not truly delivering value to you, that relationship I have with you falls flat on the table. And so I believe so much that the core to truly doing big transformational deals is value-based selling. Sell based on the problems and the use cases you want to solve for. And be honest with your customers on what problems you can solve. And if you can't solve a problem, be willing to point them in the direction of where they can get their problem solved. What would happen is you become their trusted technology advisor. And that is the sweet spot any salesperson wants to be, because what then happens is your future sales cycles are shorter. You don't have to spend too much time envisioning or doing pre-sales. The customer is willing to commit more deals to you on the strength of your word, because you are a trusted advisor. So that's my own thoughts on how you do it.
Yeah, they're very essential. You mentioned one key thing. Key strategy is always focus on value-based selling, not thinking about the number at the end. This is not a sprint; it has to be a marathon. And even when you can't address a problem for the potential prospect or the customer, if you do point to them the direction where they can address that need, it comes back to you as being a trusted partner, and not necessarily you losing money or leaving money on the table, but opening yourself for more deals, more opportunity. That is that's quite intense, and that is something that I would like people to take as salient points whenever they are going into deals. Yes, the number is good, because as a salesperson, that's what you are tied. That's what you are judged by the end of the year. But in the end of it all, if you play the long game, which sales is a long game, in the long run, you reap the benefits. And like you said, the pre-sales becomes easier, the cross-selling becomes easier, the upselling becomes even swifter. That's great. So let's move on into digital transformation and innovation. And I'd like to touch on three or two key things. One would be implementing change, because I've seen that you are a change agent, if I want to use that word. You go into businesses, you try to foster change, you try to implement change that would drive value to businesses. And of course, this has been what you've been doing in terms of the sectors, the financial sectors, energy sectors, like you rightly mentioned. So what are your key challenges when leading digital transformation projects in traditional industries?
I think that's a good one.
Mm.
The biggest problem anybody faces in digital transformation is change management. The reason it is such a difficult thing is because change management is very closely tied to the cultural aspect of organizational structures.
Yeah.
When people design digital transformation programs, they focus so much on the how they're thinking of solving the problem around competencies, capabilities, etc. They don't pay much attention to the human aspect of digital transformation, which is in my opinion, 60% of what will determine whether or not a digital transformation initiative would succeed or fail. And so for me, for example, when I'm designing, let's say I'm designing an AI transformation program, which is one of the things I'm currently doing for a number of multinational banks in Africa, I spend a lot of my time thinking about the people element. What are the capabilities the people need to get? How does this change impact their personal well-being? How does this make their work easier? How do we help the different types of stakeholders, executives, business leaders, business users, or day-to-day users adopt this change initiative? How do we help executives message the change in a sustainable manner? How do we get the HR department, especially the learning functions, to build curriculums that are not too heavy and are able to help people quickly onboard a new type of technology into their learning journey? It needs to be a very holistic program that not just takes into the process or technology aspect, but has a strong people focus, and in my opinion, prioritizes the people aspect of transformational journey. That for me is the biggest decider of whether or not any type of digital transformation initiative would succeed or fail, to be fair.
And that's nice. And you touched on something that leads us to the next question, which is emerging technologies. You did talk about, what the transformation projects you're working, the AI transformation projects you are working with major banks in Nigeria to help achieve. So that would just, fall in directly to the next question, which is, the technologies that would have the most significant impact on sales strategies in the next 5 years. Yeah. So can you based off of your experience, based on what you've seen in the market, what are those technologies that will have the impact in sales strategies?
On sales strategy, okay. So that's a very specific question.
Yeah.
The technology, so let's start with the general.
Yes.
The biggest technology that has the biggest impact is still AI, right?
Yeah.
And it has the biggest impact across all layers of transformation, just because of just how unbelievably radical it is. And I'll give you very clear examples. Let's assume we divide the universe of sales into a number of buckets. The people responsible for finding customers, the people responsible for actually marketing to those customers, the people responsible for selling, especially maybe it's B2B or B2C to those customers, and the people responsible for some degree of after sales support, which is the core areas of the sales universe. You are going to find that salespeople need to rely on AI more across these 4 areas. You're going to rely on tools, for example, that do a better job gathering information from the web around your customer information discovery. Whether you're plugging those tools into LinkedIn to find key customers who fall within a criteria, or you're using tools in terms of your customer discovery tools to work with Google AdWords or any of those, Evernote type technologies, you will be using AI to do a lot of customer profiling and identification. The AI tools will be scanning, discovering, profiling, and they make the work of salespeople easier instead of them spending their time doing traditional activities like going through yellow notes or just trying to be browsing websites. You're going to have this agent doing that work for you to gather the information in a way that is useful. The next thing is what happens in how you message to these people, which is another area. You're going to find that AI plays a role in terms of crafting tailored messages to people based on their persona, their industry, their need, where they are in a particular journey. The more data you have about these people, the better. But it tends to be a gamble. You may or may not have data, but it helps with the targeted message. This is AI that is able to compare what Wilson is doing on his job to the kind of tweets he posts on Twitter, to now look at what type of products are most suitable for Wilson. Is he at the point of stage in his life where he needs an auto loan or a mortgage-based financing or an education financing, based on what his organization is doing, maybe in telecommunications? Would they need a data monetization system? You will find AI helping you to do that targeted messaging to Wilson to say, based on where you are in your journey as a person, as a business leader, these are the kind of tools that we as an organization can provide to you. The next is now the core business of selling, which is where traditional CRM comes in. Now, the traditional CRM tools, unfortunately, had a major limitation, which is that there's the huge dependency on people to keep it alive, keep it updated, keep it refreshed, whether it is to keep opportunity details updated or to keep account details updated. And to be honest, that responsibility is not going to go away. Even in my organization, Microsoft, CRM plays a fundamental role around how we design our sales strategy and how we measure the performance of salespeople. But in the era of AI, a number of things are changing, which is you are finding CRM tools are able to introduce, using AI, a very high amount of machine learning based insights. Those machine learning based insights are able to forecast whether or not a particular deal will close based on a number of data points. They are able to forecast whether or not a particular team will make their target. They are able to quickly do customer segmentation based on industries or a number of segmentation criteria. They are able to look at propensity to buy based on spend affordability. They are able to look at a number of data points. And it is important that salespeople know how to use these tools because it makes them more effective. It helps the salespeople know where to spend more of their efforts. The traditional rule of sales has not changed.
Yeah.
It is the top 20% of people who form your sales funnel that will give you the volume of your business, your targets. And that will never change. AI will make that faster if you use it much more creatively. Another thing to point out is if you even look at it from the point of view of personal productivity as an individual, as an individual salesperson, you would find that if you are in a knowledge industry, and knowledge industries are industries where what you sell involves a significant amount of digital tools. Depending on the industry, it can be in the tech industry, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You would find that AI helps to become your digital assistant. Like before we got on this call, I got a call from the CISO about an hour ago, who was asking me some very specific questions on zero trust. Because I had worked with him on building his cybersecurity strategy, I had a general idea of what he was going to solve. But the question he was asking me was very, very specific and not necessarily an area of my strength. And as the discussion was going on, I was able to just quickly spin up the Copilot on my phone to just ask some key questions. If a customer has problem A, B, C, how do I solve it? You find that I'm speaking to the person, I'm able to speak to the person more intelligently because I don't have to cram so much. I just know how to use AI to quickly find information quickly. Now imagine if I work in a bank let's even use a bank or an insurance firm where I have a huge number of B2B, B2C type of products, and I cannot 100% memorize their pricing, the product messaging, etc. And my organization has already infused AI into my day-to-day productivity tools. I'm engaging customers on my tablet, on my phone. These tools can advise me on what to say. Imagine how that now applies to a contact center, which is the first level of sales now in this digital era. You will now find contact center people are now becoming the sales agents for the organization, because
Yes.
as they're now complaining, you have AI tools being able to quickly recommend this is how you need to respond and solve this problem. This is the kind of service we have in our organization tailored. They don't have to call another salesperson to quickly give them the information. Now it changes a lot of things. It changes customer affinity, it changes your brand reputation, because everybody perceives you as an intelligent person. But that is how you will find AI play out. Now, AI is not the only tool. Traditional data analytics still plays a role in the modern era. And when you now go into industry by industry, now capabilities for salespeople differ because the kinds of products they sell differ. The products a salesperson in telco sells is the person sells access to networks, communication, and data, which is different from what you and I would do if we sell digital products. It's different from what a banking salesperson would do, which is where he sells financial advisory or banking services. And it's been nuanced. But you'll find that the general universe of these tools around AI, around analytics, plays a predominant role. CRM will remain the foundation. It will never change. Machine learning will also play the role around forecasting and insights going forward. And for me, those are the key tools that salespeople currently need to spend a lot of their time learning to drive their own outcomes also.
Yeah, thank you. This is that was quite, you expatiated, on all the touch points and how, technology would affect, sales strategies, from what AI does to making an agent first contact point in the contact centers, helping salespeople in, profiling, customer profiling, discovery, and just customer assessment. And also we pointed out here that in as much as you have all these tools, it doesn't take away the fact that this traditional salespeople will have to do sales work. Just that the tools will help them, be more efficient, make them faster, smarter, and not just AI. You also mentioned data analytics, machine learning, and CRM. These things are here to stay. What this other AI tools will do, or the AI tools will do, would help make things faster, make you spend less time on pedestrian or monotonous work, and gives you that strength or that time to apply your skill set, your skills to things that will make you more productive. It's something that you also highlighted here, is that with AI and all this predictive analytics, you can see where teams that will meet their targets, teams that will not meet their targets, areas in which you need to spend more time to work on, so as it doesn't tip the balance in terms of the projections, the financial projections for the business. And all in all, what I get from you is that if you as salespeople, you need to have a full-on understanding of how to use these tools to work for you and make sure that you achieve what you want to achieve of them. Having the tools is one thing, but the application is also another thing. And these are the things I picked up from you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So let's move into another topic, and that is markets expansion and localization. So there's some things I'd like to get off you, like understanding markets. I know that you have worked in multiple markets, multiple regions in Africa. I'm sure you've also had touch points in the Middle East and in Europe. So how do you adopt global sales strategies to fit unique needs of the African markets? Because this is where you're actually domiciled at. So how do you take that global strategy and localize it to the African markets?
Okay, I think that's a good one. It's also an area where I think big tech organizations have often failed. And they've often failed because they take, like what you said, they take global templates and they try to apply it to our market, which doesn't even work. A number of things that I've come to learn about our market and the kind of decision makers who buy anything in our market is, number one is they appreciate salespeople who are thorough in their thinking. And I'm going to explain why all these little things matter. Being thorough in your thinking means I have sat down and I've thought about you as my customer, your end-to-end experience. And I have tried to take a product, a service, a concept, and narrated it back to you based on what your experience is. As against what is obtainable today, which is external salespeople come from some sexy market like Europe, and they just come with this nice product pitches, but they don't spend time thinking about how do you work in the Nigerian market. Think about Nigerian customers in this way. Number one is we don't like to spend too much time thinking, right? Nobody likes brain work because we have too many problems we're dealing with. Nobody wants to think.
Right.
So they like salespeople who can think for them, right? They like a salespeople who has already sat down to look at their balance sheets and look at where inefficiencies in their cost are. They like salespeople who have taken the initiative to talk to their direct reports to find out where their problems are, so they don't have to do that work themselves. They like salespeople who have spent time reading regulatory reports so that they don't have to ask and consult with the internal compliance team. They have, they like people who do that work for them, which is not, the traditional global sales methodology, but it is a required step for you to be excellent in our market. The other thing is, one thing I find that is very consistent regardless of which market you play in is that you need to be knowledgeable as salespeople. Gone are the days when we have salespeople who spend time with the generic talk, and anytime the more substantial business impact questions are asked by their customers, they can't answer those questions. They have to go back and do some work. That time has passed. That time was 2018. Now there is a major demand on salespeople to build what you call customer addiction. You need to be obsessed with your customer. You need to know how their organization works. You need to know where their business is going. And all this information is publicly available. Let's not fool ourselves. If you read the financial statement of any organization, you have a broad picture of where their business health is and where they should go. But if you as a salesperson, you've not even built the ability to read a financial statement, you can't have a discussion with a CFO, who is your primary stakeholder, right?
Yes.
If you've not spent time reading an annual statement, how do you know where they are going as an organization? If it's an energy company, are they going towards green energy, or are they doubling their bets in hydrocarbon? You don't know. You're just going to pitch a production management software for what? You don't know what they do. A telco company is a telco company looking to spin into mobile money, for example, or are they trying to go into traditional tech areas like 5G, IoT, data monetization? What is their strategy? Spend that time, right? Now, beyond all this, the sales methodologies have not changed. And let me be clear. The same methodology globally around building a customer understanding, validating their needs, piloting solutions with them, building a business case, making a financial submission and a commercial proposal, sealing the deals will never change. Whether or not you are using AI to automate some of these steps, it does not matter. It is the same steps. But if you as a salesperson is not methodical in the way you work, you will also struggle. And methodology is an area where salespeople in our market fail because they are so quick to try and they want to quickly present an invoice or a bill or a proposal in front of the customer, and they've not done the work beforehand. For simple transactional sales, that may work.
Yeah.
B2C, it may work. But for volume sales where you do a lot of B2B, it's not going to work because these people are spending millions of dollars and they need you to demonstrate that you have an understanding of what they do, you have an understanding of the problem they want to solve, you have an understanding of how your tool will solve that problem, you have an understanding of how it will impact their cash flows, you have an understanding of how even they will pay for it, where would they find the budget. You've done that work, right? Those are things I find in our market. I find that sales, in terms of acculturation and localization of knowledge, There are a few things different in our market. So if I'm selling to someone who is either from the North African market, or I'm selling to someone from the Northern Nigerian market, I understand that religious framing of how services work is important. What that means sometimes is if I need to do a presentation, it may be wiser to get an Arab speaking person to do it for you.
Okay.
The same way sub-Saharan Africa is broken into Anglophone and Francophone. The Anglophone parts of sub-Saharan Africa have the most cash, largely because Nigeria sits in that market. And I think Nigeria is the largest in that segment. But the Francophone market is there, and their peculiarities around how they do things is quite different. And what that means is that anybody who is looking to sell in that market has to understand their legislation, their policies, down to how they position products and services to their own customers, which is quite different from the English-speaking markets also. And that is some work salespeople need to do, unfortunately. But what that also means is that it gives them opportunity to either do one of two things. You either build your local competencies in terms of, do I want to add French to the languages I can speak as a starting point, or in terms of my sales engine, if I run a particular sales team, do I want to hire people from this country, or do I want to partner with sales organization in that country to go with my market value? And those are sales strategies that on a company by company basis have to be decided. But if we're going to do the original point, which is value selling, we should not be arrogant to assume that because we are one Africa, everyone needs to be treated the same. That is not true. Markets have different maturity levels. They have different sensitivities to a number of cultural concepts. I'm not going to be marketing an interest-based banking service to an organization, a country that is Islamic, and we're looking more to Islamic banking, for example. That would be foolish of me. Yeah. So those are things and nuances that need to be done. And that is how salespeople can differentiate themselves in our market when partnering with the global players, because what you do is that you help them understand the nuances of the market so that they build products that actually work for Africans by Africans, which is not something we've been doing very well. But the fintechs have done a brilliant job by the way, and tapped into that space already.
Yeah, that's great. What you said, and one of the major touch points or talking points from this conversation so far is this: it's never a one size fits all in African markets. Even if it works everywhere across the world, when it comes to Africa, yes, we're a big continent, but we, as big as we are, we have differences in terms of religion, in terms of language, in terms of principles and maturity. So more countries could be more mature than the other. So if you think that you can waltz in with the same strategy that you've successfully run in a mature ecosystem and believe that you will be successful in a less mature ecosystem, then you're in for a shock. So these are things that salespeople need to take in, take time to learn what the maturity is, how their sales ethic to be successful. Yeah, that is great. Thanks for sharing that as well. So we're going to be moving to something a little bit different. I like to call this segment the sales war stories. Now, you've been into sales for over a decade now, and I know that there are things that you've done. You've had some wins. You've had some times that you have to play the long game. There's some times that you've had some losses, I believe. So I'd like to ask, can you describe a moment where persistence paid off for you in a sales deal, trying to close a deal?
Okay. I'll try to avoid mentioning customer names.
Please do. Yeah.
I need to avoid that. One of the very first and most difficult sales engagement I had was between 2019 and 2020.
Yeah.
One of the largest banks in Nigeria, and one of the banks you call one of the systemic banks in the country,
Yeah.
had been struggling with their ERP.
Mm.
And already in banking, ERP is a sore topic because the value of ERP has not fully been demonstrated even in the banking space in any country. So it's already a sore topic. They had done an implementation that had failed, and they had approached us to help them rethink that journey. And I remember at the time I was leading pre-sales architecture for ERP then at Oracle. And one of the salespersons, a very brilliant chap that I've maintained a relationship with over the years, approached me with a problem. He was the one responsible for that customer. And he shared with me, what he was trying to do. And a lot of work had been done in terms of, thinking through how they need to, re-implement for this customer and etc. And I had to take a step back and look at the whole problem end to end. And right there, I made a very bold conclusion that the customer is actually best suited for running an ERP on the cloud. Now, that at the time was a very radical idea. It had never been done in our markets before. I do appreciate that because I had built trust with this particular account manager, he trusted my direction. And what I then did was I must have spent at least 8 months with the different departments of that bank that were reporting into group finance to look at each of their business processes and requirements and demonstrate how it would work on an Oracle ERP cloud. But I had to do that work, and it was a very painful process. Now, one of the things we did cleverly, and which is why I still believe so much in the power of pre-sales, is that I spent a lot of my time on the business envisioning and technical envisioning for the customer. But in parallel, the account manager spent a lot of his time on stakeholder alignment. In Africa, the informal discussions go a long way when you're doing transformational deals.
Yes.
Because there is what you say to each other on a Teams call or in a Zoom call, right? And what you do on a PowerPoint presentation. There is me sitting beside you in a lounge where we are relaxed, there's no pretense, and then we're having a frank conversation. Does this really work? What are the risks I need to prepare for? And he did a good job in having those types of conversations. The deal took about 2 years to close, so it took a bit of time, but it was the largest cloud deal at the time when it was done. And that was one of the examples. That was my first time, working on a deal that complex and that tedious. Over the years, I've worked on similar deals. I've worked on a CRM transformation for a bank, and that deal also took me about 9 months. And that was the first time a bank, went end to end on the Microsoft cloud at the time on the CRM. I've worked on a 5-year cloud agreement, which ran up to about $40 million then. And that one, I had to take my time to look through the customer's entire data center infrastructure and look at a combination of what workloads are optimized for the cloud and what new workloads can a customer build on the cloud that will make money for them. I had to think that way. The key learnings I have seen, and for me, those are a number of my favorite war stories, and there are quite a number of them. But what made those deals very successful was, number one, and most importantly, the entire sales team has to be aligned on that strategy.
Yes.
If only one person goes out of script, it can destroy the whole deal. And I have, a sad story around that area. But when you have a deal structure where the accounts team is aligned, the digital transformation architect myself has cleared out what the strategy should be. People who are individual product owners are aligned on what are the outcomes of this deal, what investment is required for this customer to realize value from the deal. The customer stakeholder alignment has been done, which means everybody who will either use the technology or who will be introducing a budget into that technology acquisition is clear on what the benefits will be for them, because we are selfish in this part of the world. You know, you need to do that work in ensuring that alignment is very tight. The next thing is that your sales approach has to be very methodical. This is secondary. It is very important. Methodical sales is, what is my plan as a sales team to close this deal? To do that, you need to say, what is the end goal? What is the value of which I want to close this deal? And what is the customer outcome they are looking out for? And set that as what you call a North Star. This is the goal. And start working backwards. In order to close this deal, an executive director or a board has to sign this deal, right? If the board is going to sign this deal, it means the procurement department has done their due diligence. What do they need to do their due diligence? If they have done their due diligence, what does it need? What is required for it to even get to procurement? IT has to be aligned on the solution components, the pillars of making this thing work. How would they train people? You have to work backwards and then ensure that everybody in your team is executing along those steps. What then happens is, as you are going through those steps and milestones, you are constantly checking the pulse of the customer. This is what we've agreed. This is the goal. You know, they constantly see what our North Star is. This is where we've gone. These are the next set of steps we need to follow together. When you are organized, it gives you control over the sales process, and the guarantee that you close that sales deal is higher. It's not 100%. And the reason it's not 100% is that some market events can happen. Some disruptive business events can happen. I've been in a situation where in the final stages of the deal, the entire board of the organization was changed. You know, radical things can happen, but your guarantees of success are higher, because in my situation, even if the board is changed, if you've done a strong job in that stakeholder alignment up to that point, it is easier for them to take that deal to that board, the new board members, and articulate the value and the problem they're solving for. If you've not done that job, you will struggle. Right? So those have been the great experiences I've had, to be honest. Personally, I have been careful to keep my career in the pre-sales digital transformation architecture stages. I've personally avoided going into core sales because I like getting my hands dirty. I like solving problems, and I don't want to be trapped into the numbers the numbers game. But that's how I've done it, working with the teams so far, and I think it's a guaranteed method for success. And I think it's easier to go through those steps and exhibit that patience if your intention as a salesperson is actually to help the customer. If your intention is because you want to close the deal and make a number, you will grow impatient. When you grow impatient, you will be tempted to skip steps. Chances that you will mess up the entire sales process. But if your intention is to solve the problem, you will understand the necessity of the steps you need to do to close that deal, because you understand what it means for the customer. That due diligence, you would understand what it means for them. And that's what I would advise for anybody who wants to gamble and go the career path I took.
It's great. And you know, one thing about your career path is that once you've done all this, I like to call it the due diligence, getting your hands dirty. It makes the sale get past the finish line, because everything has been sorted. The I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed. If there are margins for errors, you have seen them, you have assessed them in terms of the risk and the impact, and come up with workarounds to deal with them. And that way you are carrying the customer on a journey where everybody is aligned, from the ops team to the dev team to the sales team, the architectural team, even from the other side, the customer side, everybody's aligned. So it makes it an easier conversation when a deal is now placed on the table. So that is why this is also a critical part of sales, because without the principal consultant, without the pre-sales team, sales becomes a lot more difficult, because sales teams are going to be focusing on how to get the numbers done. But when you work with principal consultants and the pre-sales, it is like Batman and Robin. So everything is checked, and it's a lot more easier to get into conversations, get into negotiations, and of course to finish the deal. That doesn't, put a lot of, take a lot of load or from workload from the sales guys. They need to do the work as well. They need to be in tandem with the principal consultant and the pre-sales, because, in case they are called out of the blue, it's important that they understand where the deal's at, what are the things that needs to be done, the technicalities and the technical know-hows that need to be put on table. So thank you for, expatiating on that. So yeah, I have one more question. The final question for call it a wrap, and that would be this. This is basically a career advice for sales professionals, aspiring sales professionals. What I'd like to ask is, how can sales professionals accelerate their growth? Sales professionals, aspiring sales professionals, how can they accelerate their growth or their sales career growth?
Okay. People will not like this response. I'm gonna
air it out.
I would always be honest. In the modern world, what makes a good salesperson is a balance of skills you have. Not, building too much. Salespeople spend too much time, in my opinion, on relationship building as against trying to be actually balanced salespeople. To be a balanced salesperson, you need to have 3 categories of skills. Number 1 is what you call market skills. The market skills are, what is the industry, or what are the industries I will be selling into? Understanding them, the industry understanding. Who are the key stakeholders in that industry? Who are the customers, the consumers of that particular industry segment? Building strong industry domain knowledge is extremely critical for salespeople. The second category of skills are what I like to call the customer skills. The customer skills are, who is my customer? Account management skills. What industry problems does my customer have? Meaning I need to be able to have the ability to do industry or business discovery type of questioning. And that is how I'm able to ask intelligent questions. This may vary by industry, to be fair, which means if you're a salesperson that is trying to be generalist, then you should prepare your mind to learn a lot of industries and customer segments, right?
Yeah.
But you need to learn, customers, and what makes a customer a customer. What do they do? How are they structured? How are they broken? Customer understanding is important. The third area of skills is what you now call the solution skills. Solution skills are, regardless of whether I sell a digital product or a commercial product or an industry product, it doesn't matter. Solution skills are, 1, do I know a lot of solutions for these particular customers I deal with? That is what you call solution breadth, the range of what you know. The second is solution depth. Across each product I'm looking to market and sell to a customer, do I know it well enough? Can I speak to specific use cases where this product or service is actually applicable in terms of the problem I'm solving for? So I was explaining that I started building this in Oracle, and then Microsoft also built on it. We have this very robust competency matrix. Now, those competency metrics now break these areas I mentioned into very specific areas. So, for example, if you are selling an ERP, obviously you need to know what ERP, supply chain management, HR means. If you are selling cloud technologies, you need to know what DevOps is, container architecture is, integration services. You need to know what these things are. And those are all solution areas. Depending on whatever you are selling, you need to know your product, know your solution. Which for digital sales, a lot of people fail. They don't know their product so well. Because if you know your product, you can speak to exactly the kind of problems your products can solve. But to grow in maturity, sales methodology becomes important.
Yes.
You need to understand, you need to be grounded, your sales methodology needs to be your Bible, guiding how you orchestrate sales for customers. Your stakeholder management skills needs to be solid. You need to be able to manage internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. Remember, everybody has different interests. You need to learn them. And then I think you need to also do a really, really good job in also trying to just make sure you constantly understand the market. That is what positions you as a leader in an industry. It is leaders. Leaders don't speak in product terms. They
Yes.
speak in terms of market opportunities. What is the opportunity for a whole organization to save money based on what is obtainable elsewhere? That level of extra thinking and not micro thinking, macro-based economic thinking, is particularly important. And I'm trying to make sure I keep this very simple, because other people can tell you, oh, go and do an MBA, go and do an executive course and things, and those are the means to an end. But in doing all these courses, doing all these certifications, taking all these programs, you need to be clear on, in my skill metric, what is the skill I'm getting from this? Where does it fit into my skills matrix, right? By maintaining that skills matrix, you're also able to be accountable for your growth as a salesperson. And you will quickly see that the quality of your discussions change with customers. You are no longer transactional. You are talking in terms of business impact, because you can connect multiple areas and domains of knowledge into a single story, from how market forces are driving a customer situation and how your organization solves for that. If you don't solve for all these knowledge areas in a very balanced manner, you will not be a very mature salesperson. You will make money, but in terms of building the kind of industry repute you need that makes you attractable in this new era that is highly competitive, you will not be attractive. And you will find yourself in a situation where your career is stuck to your current employer because nobody else finds you balanced enough to join their teams or their organization. And that's what I'll advise anybody. Build your customer obsession, care about them, like truly, truly care about your customer, and build if you're in digital sales anyway, build your tech intensity. You need to know technology. You can't treat technology as some abstract thing. You need to know it. It needs to be what you use in your personal life as your own personal productivity, because you are selling yourself when you sell in any type of industry. And that's all I'll be able to say for now.
Yeah, it's all, and that's a lot, and that is is something that people would take home with. You have to be obsessed about the customer's growth, customer success. That's the only way you'd understand where their pain points are and where they want to go to, their vision, and how you can key in terms of services that your product can offer to them, or technologies that you can put up onto their platform that will help them achieve what they want to achieve. That is quite, that is essential as a salesperson. And yeah, thank you for sharing this. So we've come to the end of this. I'd like to ask, if people want, after, on the backdrop of listening to this conversation, are keen to learn more about you, are keen to connect with you, where can they get you on social media, on the internet? How?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to point people to knowledge sources, information sources that will quickly get them up to skill and gain better salespeople also. But yes, LinkedIn, you will find me there. I'm very responsive there, interact there also.
Okay, great. Wole's LinkedIn will be on the show notes, so please interact. And this conversation has been very, very helpful. We learn a lot, and I'm sure everybody listening to this or will listen to this would have a lot to learn. You will scribble down a lot on your notes, and of course you'll be eager to have more conversations and connect with Wole. But for here on out, this is where we draw the curtains for today's episode. Before we go, I'd like to ask Wole if he has any parting words, any final words before we call it a wrap.
everybody is afraid of the AI revolution.
Yes.
I don't think you should be. I think it is an opportunity for us to grow. I think the growth may have come faster than we planned, but it's the opportunity now. It's the opportunity for us to think differently. And I think that for people who are willing to put in that sacrifice to learn, they will thrive in the new economy, in the new market. And in the new world, salespeople who are genuinely concerned about delivering value are the ones who will actually shine. So please commit to the delivery of value to people. It will drive everything else in your personal life and also in your professional life also. And I don't think anything else matters, no matter where you are in your career journey. Nothing else matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Words of marble from Wole. Thank you very much for that. And that's it. That's a wrap for me. Thank you very much. For now, it's goodbye and see you on the next one. Thanks, Wole.